The galaxy was vast, cold, and unkind. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had dominated it with iron discipline and an unyielding will to control every species it encountered. Entire civilizations had crumbled under their war fleets, reduced to little more than tributary states. When the Empire's emissaries arrived in the Sol system, humanity was expected to bow like so many others had. But humanity had a history of defiance. The meeting took place aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Ardent, stationed in orbit around the human colony on Europa. The Emperor's representative, High Chancellor Tvorak, was a towering insectoid figure encased in ceremonial armor. Across the negotiation table sat Admiral Sarah Malik, representing the United Terran Federation, her expression as cold as the frozen surface of the moon below them. "Humans," Tvorak began, his voice dripping with disdain, "you are a young, reckless species. You have refused to comply with the Empire's edicts for decades, but the time for negotiation has ended. You will either submit and join the Empire as a vassal state, or you will be annihilated." Admiral Malik folded her hands and leaned forward. "We've heard your demands before, Chancellor, and our answer remains the same. Humanity does not kneel. We are not a vassal species." Tvorak's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Defiance will only bring you destruction. Your colonies will burn. Your people will suffer." Admiral Malik stood, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "You may have conquered others, but humanity is different. We don't intimidate easily. Return to your emperor and tell him this. If he wants war, we'll give him one." Tvorak hissed in frustration, slamming his clawed hand on the table. "You fools! Do you understand what you're inviting? The Empire's fleets outnumber your ships 1,000 to 1. You are ants against a hurricane." Admiral Malik's reply was simple. "Try us." Back on Earth, news of the Empire's ultimatum spread like wildfire. Public sentiment turned grim, but not fearful. For years, humanity had suspected the Empire would eventually push for outright domination. Preparations had been made, but the scope of the coming war was daunting. The United Terran Federation convened an emergency session to decide humanity's fate. The meeting took place in the Terran Command headquarters, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was a mix of military officers, scientists, and political leaders. A massive holographic display of the Sol system dominated the center of the chamber, with red markers indicating the likely paths of an imperial invasion. President Elena Castillo addressed the council. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Empire has made its intentions clear. They will not stop until humanity is either subjugated or destroyed. We have two options: surrender or fight. There is no middle ground." General Marcus Hayes, head of the Terran Defense Forces, spoke next. "Surrender isn't an option. We've studied what happens to civilizations that join the Empire. They lose everything: freedom, identity, autonomy. If we give in, humanity will become just another cog in their machine." Dr. Asha Patel, a leading scientist, added, "Fighting won't be easy. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, and their fleets are massive. But humans have something the Empire doesn't: adaptability. If we can exploit their weaknesses, we might stand a chance." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Admiral Malik, who had just returned from Europa. Her voice was steady and resolute. "The Empire is overconfident. They see us as primitives, unworthy of consideration. That arrogance is their weakness. If we strike hard and fast, we can make them bleed." President Castillo nodded. "Then it's decided. We fight." The announcement of humanity's decision sent ripples across the galaxy. To the Empire, it was an insult of the highest order. To the countless oppressed species scattered across imperial space, it was a spark of hope. For humanity, it was a call to arms. In the days that followed, Earth and its colonies mobilized like never before. Factories were converted to produce warships and weapons. Civilian freighters were retrofitted with armor and cannons, becoming part of a hastily assembled militia fleet. Scientists worked around the clock, pushing the limits of human ingenuity to develop experimental technologies that could level the playing field. One such innovation was Project Aegis, a defense initiative led by Dr. Patel. At its heart was a new type of energy shield capable of withstanding the firepower of an Imperial dreadnought. Patel presented the prototype to Admiral Malik and General Hayes during a briefing at Luna Base. This shield system, Patel explained, draws power directly from our ship's fusion cores. It's not perfect and it's untested in combat, but it could buy us the time we need to adapt to their tactics. Admiral Malik studied the holographic schematics. We'll test it in the field. If it works, it could change everything. Meanwhile, General Hayes oversaw the creation of Operation Iron Wall, a strategic defense plan designed to protect Earth and its colonies. Key to the plan was the use of asteroid fields and planetary rings as natural barriers. Hayes also ordered the deployment of orbital railgun platforms, capable of delivering devastating firepower from long range. The Empire wasted no time in responding to humanity's defiance. Within weeks, a massive Imperial fleet began assembling near the border of Terran space. Reports from scouts and spies painted a grim picture. The Empire was committing dozens of dreadnoughts, supported by countless cruisers and destroyers. It was a show of force designed to crush humanity in a single, overwhelming strike. On Earth, the mood was tense but resolute. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers, eager to defend their homeworld. Families prepared for the worst, knowing the war would reach every corner of human space. Yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was also a sense of unity. For the first time in history, humanity was united under a single cause: survival. Admiral Malik addressed the United Terran Fleet in a broadcast transmitted to every ship and station. Her voice was calm, her words precise. The Empire thinks they can intimidate us. They think they can break us. But they don't understand what it means to be human. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that's been crushed under their boot. We're fighting for freedom, for the right to exist on our own terms. They want a war? Then let's give them one. The chapter closes as the Terran fleet begins to mobilize. On the edge of the Sol system, outposts detect the first signs of the Imperial Armada approaching. Humanity braces for the storm, knowing the battle ahead will determine their fate. As the camera pans out, Earth's night side glows with the lights of factories and shipyards working tirelessly. Above the planet, the newly assembled Terran fleet stands ready. The Galactic Empire wanted war. Humanity said, okay. The silence of space was deceptive. On the edge of the Sol system, at the Kuiper Belt's fringe, humanity prepared for its first true encounter with the Galactic Empire. The scattered ice fields were now a strategic battleground, with dozens of Terran warships hidden among the frozen rocks, their hulls masked to blend with the surrounding debris. The Empire's fleet, unaware of what lay in wait, moved forward in a formation that exuded confidence bordering on arrogance. Admiral Malik stood on the bridge of the UTS Dauntless, the flagship of the United Terran Fleet. Her officers worked in hushed efficiency, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. A tactical map displayed the incoming Imperial Armada, an overwhelming swarm of dreadnoughts, cruisers, and fighter squadrons. Yet, Malik's gaze remained steady. "How long until visual range?" she asked. 10 minutes, Admiral, replied her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Rios. Malik nodded. "Activate the decoys and hold position. Let them come to us." The Imperial fleet advanced with deliberate precision. From the bridge of the ISS Dominance, Fleet Commander Zarin observed the incoming system with a mixture of disdain and boredom. To him, this campaign was nothing more than pest control. Humanity's refusal to surrender had been an irritant, but their resistance was expected to crumble with a single decisive strike. Status report, Zarin barked to his second-in-command. "Scanners detect no significant Terran fleet, sir. Only scattered signals, likely debris or mining activity. Their main forces must be hiding closer to their inner planets." Zarin smirked. "Fitting. The cowards flee before us. Deploy the forward vanguard to clear the area. The rest of the fleet will press forward toward their homeworld." As ordered, several Imperial cruisers broke off from the main fleet, their sleek forms gliding effortlessly toward the disguised Terran positions. On the Dauntless, Admiral Malik watched as the Imperial vanguard entered the ambush zone. Each cruiser was larger and more advanced than any single Terran ship, their shields shimmering faintly as they absorbed the energy of the Kuiper Belt's drifting particles. But they were vulnerable in their overconfidence. Commander Rios, Malik ordered, initiate Operation Frostbite. A single pulse of encrypted signals rippled through the icy expanse. Hidden among the debris, Terran ships powered up their engines and weapons. Railguns, newly equipped with cryogenic rounds, came to life. Missiles fitted with warheads designed to bypass shield harmonics locked onto their targets. The trap was sprung. The first strike was devastating. Railgun slugs, moving at a fraction of light speed, punched through the shields of the lead Imperial cruiser, shattering its hull and detonating its reactor. The resulting explosion sent shards of debris cascading through the formation, catching another cruiser unprepared. Missiles followed, their adaptive guidance systems weaving through flak screens to find weak points in the Empire's vaunted defenses. From her command post, Malik spoke with calm authority. All units maintain formation, prioritize their lead ships and disrupt their advance. Make them bleed. Terran ships emerged from hiding, firing in coordinated volleys before retreating into the icy fields. They exploited their home field advantage, using the Kuiper Belt's chaotic terrain to evade retaliation. Imperial ships fired blindly into the debris, their weapons finding only empty space or harmless chunks of ice. For the first time in centuries, an Imperial fleet stumbled. On the Dominance, Fleet Commander Zaren's composure began to crack. He watched as his vanguard was reduced to flaming wreckage, unable to respond to the Terran hit-and-run tactics. It was an insult to Imperial superiority. Pull the vanguard back, he roared. Send the fighters into the field. Flush out their ships and destroy them. The order was carried out with brutal efficiency. Swarms of Imperial fighters launched from their carriers, their engines leaving trails of plasma as they dove into the battlefield. But the Terran fleet was ready. Dr. Patel's experimental energy shields, hastily deployed across key Terran vessels, proved their worth. As Imperial fighters strafed the Terran lines, their energy blasts fizzled against the shimmering barriers. Meanwhile, Terran corvettes, nimble and heavily armed, engaged the fighters in dogfights. The once confident Imperial pilots found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. Despite the early success, the battle was far from over. The main Imperial fleet began to reposition, its dreadnoughts lining up for a concentrated bombardment. From her vantage point on the Dauntless, Malik knew the tide could shift at any moment. Status on our secondary fleet? She asked. They're in position near Neptune's orbit, Rios replied. Ready to engage on your command. Malik made a swift decision. Send the signal. Divide their forces. As the Terran ships in the Kuiper Belt continued their hit-and-run attacks, a second fleet emerged from Neptune's shadow. Comprising frigates and missile cruisers, the fleet targeted the Empire's rear lines, forcing Zaren to split his attention. Clever, Zaren muttered, watching the tactical display. But cleverness won't save you. He ordered his dreadnoughts to open fire, their massive cannons unleashing beams of searing energy. The blasts ripped through the battlefield, forcing the Terran fleet to scatter. One frigate took a direct hit, its hull evaporating in an instant. The loss was a grim reminder of the Empire's overwhelming power. After hours of relentless fighting, the Imperial fleet began to withdraw. It wasn't a retreat. They had inflicted losses on the Terrans and gathered valuable data on their tactics. But Zaren was unwilling to risk further humiliation in a protracted engagement. Pull back to the staging point, he commanded. Let them savor their small victory. It will make their eventual defeat all the sweeter. On the Dauntless, Admiral Malik watched as the Imperial ships disappeared into the void. The cost had been high, several Terran ships were lost, and thousands of lives with them. But the battle had sent a clear message. Humanity would not fall easily. As the battlefield fell silent, Malik addressed her crew. This was only the beginning. They'll come back stronger, and we'll be ready. Today, we proved that humanity can stand against the Empire. Tomorrow, we'll show them what it means to fight for freedom. The Sol system was no longer a peaceful refuge. The skies above Earth buzzed with activity as the United Terran fleet repaired its battered ships, refueled, and prepared for the next inevitable clash. The victory at the Kuiper Belt had been a morale boost, but it was a fragile one. Humanity had struck a nerve, and the Galactic Empire would not tolerate the humiliation. Admiral Malik stood at the center of the UTS Dauntless war room, a holographic projection of the solar system spinning slowly before her. Around the table sat Earth's most brilliant military minds, along with representatives from the United Nations Defense Council. The room was thick with tension, each participant weighing the cost of resistance against the odds of survival. Dr. Riya Patel, the lead scientist behind humanity's new shielding technology, leaned forward. Her voice was calm but urgent. The data from the battle confirms what we feared. The Empire's firepower is unparalleled. Our shields held better than expected, but their dreadnoughts were only testing us. Next time, they'll come with weapons specifically designed to counter our advancements. Malik nodded, her gaze steady. What do you propose, Doctor? We need time to scale production of our shield generators and adapt them for planetary defenses. But to buy that time, we'll need to keep the Empire distracted. Force them to spread their fleet thin. General Huan, head of Earth's ground forces, frowned. You're suggesting we take the fight to them? We barely held them off in our own backyard. Not a direct assault, Patel clarified. We hit their supply lines, sabotage their staging points, make them bleed in ways they don't expect. Meanwhile, on the Imperial flagship ISS Dominance, Fleet Commander Zarin brooded in his private quarters. The loss at the Kuiper Belt had not gone unnoticed. Imperial High Command had issued thinly veiled threats, questioning his competence. Zarin clenched his jaw as he reviewed the battle footage, replaying the moment his cruisers were destroyed by Terran ingenuity. They're primitives, he muttered, his voice low and venomous. Yet they fight like seasoned warriors. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His second-in-command, Captain Vera, stepped inside. Commander, our scouts have intercepted Terran communications. It seems they're planning a series of raids on our forward supply depots. Zarin's lips curled into a cold smile. Foolish. They overestimate their strength. Let them try. We'll set a trap and crush their resistance once and for all. On the outskirts of the Sol system, the Terran fleet gathered its strike force. A dozen ships, including the UTS Tempest and the UTS Valkyrie, prepared to embark on a daring mission to disrupt the Empire's supply lines. Captain Lena Morales of the Valkyrie was eager to prove herself. As one of the youngest captains in the fleet, she had earned her rank through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. Standing on the bridge of her ship, Morales addressed her crew. We've all seen what the Empire is capable of. They think we're ants to be crushed under their boots. Let's show them what happens when the ants fight back. The fleet's first target was an Imperial fuel depot stationed in a remote star system. The depot was lightly defended, a strategic oversight by the Empire, which had grown complacent in its dominance. The Terran ships emerged from hyperspace in tight formation, their weapons primed. The attack was swift and precise. Railguns and missiles tore through the depot's defenses, igniting fuel reserves in a spectacular chain reaction. The explosion lit up the void, leaving no doubt that humanity could strike where it hurt. But as the Terran fleet prepared to jump back to safety, an alarm sounded. Admiral Malik, we've got incoming, shouted the sensor officer on the Dauntless. Imperial reinforcements had arrived, a small fleet led by an agile battleship. It was clear this had been a trap, just as Patel had warned. Malik quickly assessed the situation. All ships, defensive formation. We're not running. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. The skirmish that followed was brutal. The Valkyrie danced through the chaos, its captain directing her crew with unflinching precision. Imperial ships swarmed, their superior firepower forcing the Terran fleet to split and evade. On the Tempest, a missile barrage struck the rear engines, causing the ship to lose power. Malik ordered the fleet to cover the damaged vessel, knowing it couldn't be left behind. As the battle raged, humanity's resolve was tested to its limits. Losses mounted on both sides, but it was clear the Terrans could not hold out much longer. Malik's mind raced. She needed a way to even the odds, and fast. "Commander Rios," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Bring up the asteroid targeting program. If we can't match their firepower, we'll use the environment." The Dauntless crew worked quickly, targeting a cluster of nearby asteroids with their railguns. One by one, the projectiles hit their marks, sending massive chunks of rock hurtling toward the Imperial fleet. The debris smashed into their formations, forcing them to break ranks. The tactic bought enough time for the Terran fleet to regroup. But it came at a cost. Several Terran ships were too damaged to escape, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to protect the rest. Among them was the Tempest, whose captain transmitted a final, defiant message before the ship exploded in a fiery blaze. As the surviving Terran ships limped back to Sol, the mood was somber. The raid had succeeded in damaging the Empire's supply chain, but the cost had been high. On the Dauntless, Malik gathered her officers. "This is war," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. "Every victory will come at a price. But today we proved that we can hit them where it hurts. We'll honor the fallen by continuing the fight. The Empire may have the numbers, but we have something they'll never understand. The will to survive." In the void of space, humanity's resolve burned brighter than ever. The war was far from over, but they would not go quietly into the night. The air in the war room aboard the UTS Dauntless was tense. The holographic display flickered with real-time images of Imperial fleets converging on the Sol system. Admiral Malik stood at the head of the table, her expression resolute as she addressed her officers. "The Empire has escalated. Their armada will reach Earth in 72 hours. This is their full might. A show of force to break us, to end us." She paused, scanning the faces of those who had fought beside her for months. "But they don't understand what we've become. We are no longer a species begging for survival. We are warriors." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, but it was laced with uncertainty. The Empire's fleet was colossal, thousands of warships, with weapons capable of reducing entire planets to rubble. Humanity's fleet was a fraction of that size, and many of their ships were still damaged from the recent skirmishes. Yet retreat was not an option. Dr. Riya Patel stood, her voice breaking through the tension. "Admiral, our new planetary defense grid is operational. The shield technology has been scaled to cover Earth and Luna. It won't hold forever, but it will buy us time." "Time for what?" asked General Huan, his tone grim. "Even with the shields, we can't win a battle of attrition." "That's why we won't fight one," Malik interjected. Her voice carried a quiet determination that silenced the room. She activated the hologram, which shifted to display a single point deep within the Empire's territory. "The galactic capital, Aurelian Prime. We've identified their weakness. Aurelian Prime is not just their political heart. It's the hub of their entire command structure. If we can strike there, we can force them to negotiate. Without central leadership, their fleets will falter." The room erupted in disbelief. "A suicide mission," someone muttered. "It's our only option," Malik said firmly. "A small strike team will infiltrate Aurelian Prime and disable their command network. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet will engage the Armada in the Sol system, buying us the time we need." 3 days later, the battle for Earth began. The Imperial Armada arrived in perfect formation, their ships blocking out the stars. Humanity's fleet, battered but defiant, rose to meet them. Railguns fired, missiles streaked through the void, and the new planetary defense grid shimmered as it absorbed the brunt of the initial assault. The Empire's warships advanced with ruthless precision, but the Terrans fought like cornered predators, their desperation fueling their ingenuity. On board the UTS Valkyrie, Captain Lena Morales directed her ship with surgical precision. "Focus fire on their carrier group. If we take out their fighter support, we can thin their ranks." Her crew responded instantly, their coordinated strikes crippling the Imperial carriers. The battle was chaotic and brutal, but it was only a diversion. Deep within Imperial space, the strike team moved undetected. A single Terran stealth ship, the UTS Phantom, carried a crew of 12, including Admiral Malik, Dr. Patel, and Captain Morales. Their target was the communications hub buried beneath the capital city of Aurelian Prime, a facility that coordinated the Empire's fleets across the galaxy. The Phantom slipped through the planet's defenses, its advanced cloaking technology shielding it from detection. Landing on the outskirts of the city, the team infiltrated the command facility under the cover of darkness. The streets were eerily quiet, the towering spires of the city gleaming under an artificial sky. As they descended into the underground complex, tension mounted. The corridors were lined with Imperial guards, their armor gleaming and their weapons at the ready. The team moved silently, neutralizing threats with precision. At the heart of the facility was the control room, a sprawling chamber filled with holographic displays and an array of alien technology. Dr. Patel worked quickly, hacking into the Empire's systems to upload a virus designed to cripple their command network. "This will work," Patel whispered, her hands flying over the console. "But it'll take time." Time was a luxury they didn't have. Alarms blared as reinforcements closed in. Captain Morales and her soldiers formed a defensive line, holding back the tide of Imperial guards. Blaster fire filled the room, and the smell of ozone burned in the air. "How much longer, Patel?" Malik shouted over the chaos. 2 minutes. "Make it 1, Morales snapped, firing at an advancing guard. The team held their ground, but their losses mounted. Finally, Patel shouted, "It's done. The virus is in." The strike team retreated under heavy fire, racing back to the Phantom. As they lifted off, explosions rippled through the city's infrastructure. The virus was doing its job, disabling the Empire's communications and sowing chaos among their fleets. Back in the Sol system, the effects were immediate. The Imperial Armada faltered, their coordinated assault breaking down as orders ceased to flow. Admiral Malik's plan had worked. The Empire's greatest strength, its unity, was now its greatest weakness. Humanity seized the moment. The Terran fleet, battered but unbroken, launched a counteroffensive. Railguns tore through Imperial dreadnoughts, and swarms of fighters overwhelmed their scattered forces. The once imposing armada began to retreat, their cohesion shattered. As the Phantom returned to Earth, Malik addressed her crew and the people of humanity. Her voice echoed across every communication channel. "Today we proved that humanity will not bow. The Empire sought to break us, but they underestimated our resolve. We have taken the fight to their doorstep and shown them that freedom is not so easily extinguished. The war was far from over, but for the first time humanity had the upper hand." The Galactic Empire had learned a costly lesson. The humans they sought to crush were far more formidable than they had ever imagined.